Ask you if Chad or Lori provided you any details regarding how Lori's daughter died.
No,
And you talked about going to clean a house. Was that Emma's house?
that was Emma's house when we took meals to her and she'd gotten quite sick. And so I'd gone to clean her house and for her.
At some point, did you learn that Lori's children were missing?
I did learn, let's see, I believe it was after in November, I learned that they were missing. Um, and I learned who their mother was and that she was married to Chad. So my husband and I called Chad and asked him, are these her children that are missing? And he said that, yes, that it was a custody battle and that when everything came out, it would be fine.
And would this have been after Chad and Lori had told you of their plans to get married?
Yes, I think it was after they were married.
And after that visit in late October, early November, where both Chad and Lori were present, did you learn whether or not Chad was still in Idaho?
He was still in Idaho when they came to visit us. And then it's when I cleaned Emma's house, I believe, and that's when she told me they had gotten married.
Did you learn where Chad had gotten married?
Yes,
And where was that?
in Hawaii.
After his marriage, did Chad ever come to your residence again?
Yes, he came and showed us wedding pictures of their wedding there in Hawaii, and was quite excited to show us his wedding pictures.
And do you recall approximately how much time had passed between he and Lori's first visit to your house and then that second visit when they were married?
I think it was 2 weeks.
Were you surprised to see wedding photos?
Yes,
And why were you surprised?
I was surprised they'd got married so early. I was really surprised when they had told me they didn't know when or how, but then I was surprised that it was so early.
And you were friends with Tammy, right?
Yes.
At some point after that visit, when Chad and Lori showed you the wedding photos, did Chad come to your residence again?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when that would have been?
He came after Lori was arrested in Hawaii, and he had moved back to Idaho, and he came and asked if he could, first asked if he could I think it was when her first bond was gonna come up. And that's when he asked us if we would put our house up for her bond.
And prior to asking you for you to put up the bond, do you recall if he ever asked if he could live with you?
Yes, he did.
And what did you tell him?
Well, first y- it was like an overnight, if he could be overnight. And and I was okay with an overnight, but I could not let him live with us. So we told him that our daughter was going to move in and there wouldn't be any room.
And then he'd ask you to consider putting up some bond money or putting up your property. Is that correct?
Judge, I'm gonna object at this point. We're getting a little leading. Sustain.
And I think you had previously indicated that he asked you about bond. Do
Yes.
you recall what he asked you in relation to that?
When he came in, he was quite upset. And he said he had to get her out of jail and that he cried and he said it was just killing her to be in jail and could we put our house up for bond? And we asked him if he had family that could help him. He said no. And he mentioned another friend, I think. He said he couldn't help him. And um, we said we would think about it, and I think that was a Saturday. Sunday, we got a text from him and he wanted to bring the bondswoman to our home and to meet her at our house that Sunday.
And did you in fact have another conversation with Chad about posting bond or putting your property up?
Yes, there was 2 conversations. This was the first one.
And what did you ultimately end up deciding?
No.
During your conversation with Chad regarding the bond, do you recall anything about the comment previously made about Lori's daughter dying coming up?
Yes, because I asked him, how many daughters does Lori have? And he said, 1. And I said, well, when we met you, you told me she had a daughter that passed away. And he said, no, I didn't. And I said, yes, you did. And then when I asked him about the missing children, and he said it was a custody battle. So that's why I asked, how many daughters does she have? And then he denied telling me that.
Did you learn the name of Lori's daughter?
I only learned not through him. I didn't.
Have you since heard the name Tylee?
Yes,
Do you recall specifically talking to Chad about Tylee?
I did. When he asked about the bond, I was a little miffed that he had asked that. And so I thought, I'm asking you some questions. So I asked him, where are the children? And I asked him, where's Tylee? I said, she's a teenager. So I said, doesn't she want a life? And come out and say, I'm the missing girl. I want a job and a life and a boyfriend. And he just said, she didn't like people and she didn't like me.
Did something stick out about those statements?
He said, didn't.
So he used the past tense.
He did.
And backing up a little bit, do you recall a time in February of 2019 when Chad was at your residence?
Yes. He had come over. We were working on a bedroom floor and he came over, and as he was leaving, that's when he mentioned that he had a vision or such that Tammy was going to pass away. He didn't know how or when, but before her 50th birthday.
And do you recall around that same time Chad saying anything about Tammy and games on a computer?
Yes, he had told my husband and I that Tammy liked to play some games on the computer, and that he had told her that her grandmother, I think, but she was dead, had come to him and told him to tell her that she was not happy with Tammy on the computer, that she was wasting her time on the computer.
When Chad made the comment about Tammy going to die, did Tammy have any health issues that you were aware of?
No, in fact, I kind of just passed it off. I didn't really take it serious, honestly, because she wasn't.
If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Gilbert, can you tell me how often on a weekly basis you would see Tammy Daybell
We had our meetings on Wednesday mornings and then I would see her on Sunday.
at church?
Yeah.
So, and how long were the meetings on Wednesday morning?
Oh, an hour to 2 hours.
Okay, and how many people were present at that meeting when you would see her for those Wednesday meetings?
There were 4 of us.
Okay, and that was about for 2 hours.
That was the longest.
Okay, that was a long meeting?
That was the longest we went.
Oh, the longest you go. Okay, and then as far as church is concerned, did you sit next to each other at church?
No, sometimes in our second meeting, we sat by each other because it was our presidency, but not in the first meeting.
Okay, so church would last about how long on a Sunday?
2 hours.
Okay. So you would see her for about 3 to 4 hours a week?
Yeah.
Would that be fair? Okay. And then after the birth of Emma's child, the Daybell family would sit at the back of the church. Is that right? You recall that?
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not in evidence. Counsel's testifying. Move to strike.
World.
So the location of where they would sit, generally, do you recall that they would sit in the front of the church in the beginning?
Not quite in the front, maybe the middle.
Okay. And then after Emma's child was born, they would, out of respect, they
Sometime,
moved to
yeah.
the back. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, do you have any recollection of Chad spending mornings at the Salem church every morning with his truck parked up there?
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
Do you have any information about Chad parking his truck up at the Salem church every morning
On Sunday morning?
every morning? during
Oh,
the-
no,
during
I
the
have
week?
no idea every
Okay.
morning.
And you do understand that Tammy's family was from Springville, right?
Yes,
And so it wouldn't have been particularly unusual for Tammy to have a service in Springville out of respect to her family over there, correct?
no, and I didn't.
Okay. You made mention of something about our presidency, and my notes say Bishop provided a meal. Talk to me about that a
Mhm.
little bit.
So the 4 of us in our Relief Society presidency, and I had contacted the bishop and he wanted to be part of that. So us 3 sisters now in the Relief Society provided the meal and the bishop included in on that.
And then my notes say the 26th of October is the date that Chad mentioned that he met Lori when he was talking with you, and he mentioned that he met Lori Vallow at a conference in St. George, Utah.
Right.
And that was sometime in very late of 2018, right?
I believe that conference was
Okay.
in 2018.
And you mentioned that the way you knew Lori Vallow was through a person by the name of Melanie Gibb.
Right.
And you know Melanie Gibb as someone who's deeply involved in the Preparing the People movement and those sort of organizations, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not in evidence. Counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
How do you know Melanie Gibb?
I think, I don't know how we came upon her podcast, and I was trying to remember how we knew of her podcast. But I didn't know Lori, and so we just wanted to listen to Melanie's.
Okay.
And then that's where I heard of Lori, is through on her podcast.
So did you know of Melanie through the fact that she had a podcast, or did you know her through her participation in the Preparing the People movement?
I just knew her through the podcast.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, you mentioned that Chad talked to you about taking all of the kids to Disneyland. Is it possible they said Knott's Berry Farm?
I heard Disneyland.
Okay. Okay. Have you been to Chad's house?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say that it's a one-story house?
There's an addition to the house.
Right.
You walk through a breezeway and then there's stairs that goes up.
Right. And when you say an addition, it's more of a building that's.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying. Witness has already said.
Sustained.
Okay. Are you aware that that attachment to the back of the house doesn't have any electric?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Are you aware that the attachment to the house that build on doesn't have any heat?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying. Facts not in evidence. Move to strike.
Sustained. Mr. Pryor, it's got to be questioning, not just testimony through your question.
Well, Judge, I'm asking her if she's aware.
Well, I know, but there's a proper way to do that with facts from the witness, not from you.
Do you, have you been in that addition that's attached to the house?
I have.
Okay. Do you have any information about what utilities are available in that building?
I don't. I didn't look
Okay.
at that
Okay.
part.
And are you aware that nobody uses that?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying or attempting to testify. Move to strike.
Sustained.
Do you have any knowledge about any of the family members utilizing any of that portion of the addition?
I knew that Garth had a ham radio set up and I think a drum set. up
Okay.
there. I don't know on their living conditions.
Okay. Were you aware of their living conditions in the primary residence?
I just knew of where Tammy's room was at.
Okay. And that's Chad's room as well?
I assume so.
Okay. And then in the other bedroom would be whose room?
I don't know which rooms the kids, whose room was what.
Okay. At the time of Tammy's passing, do you know who was living in the residence at the time?
I believe Garth was.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm not sure if Seth was or not.
Okay.
He could have been.
Okay. And then obviously you previously mentioned something about Emma living kitty corner from the house, right?
Right. And then Mark was coming home from his mission, so he would have lived there, but
Okay.
not yet.
And the other daughter lives somewhere in Utah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you indicated that Chad openly spoke to you about the Disneyland, discussed it with you openly, right?
Yeah, just that they were going to take the kids to Disneyland.
Okay, so at around the time of October, when I believe these discussions were in October, right?
Right.
He wasn't trying to hide his whereabouts in any way, was he?
He didn't with us.
And he wasn't trying to conceal where he was going on trips and vacations, correct?
No, not with us. He didn't.
And he openly discussed with you his plans for the future, correct?
That he was going to go to Hawaii and write a book.
Okay. Yeah. And did you get the impression from Chad when he was talking about the children, that he felt the children were still alive?
I didn't know of missing children then.
Okay, well, that wasn't really my question. My question was, at the time he was talking to you about the children, did she?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's okay. I mean, I know this is nerve-wracking.
I'm not sure which time.
Okay, it's okay. But at the time you've had discussions with Chad about the children, based on his demeanor, did you get the impression that he felt the children were still alive?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
I felt like he was avoiding it. I didn't get I couldn't get a straight answer.
Okay. So when he told you that when the truth comes out and that you felt it was a custody case, that didn't give you the impression that when the truth came out, it was a custody case, that the children's whereabouts would be told to everybody?
That's what he told me, but I
Okay.
was confused.
Okay,
From
it's
the other-
okay. Judge, that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you have any idea where Chad went every morning?
I have no idea.
And you didn't talk about that, right?
No, I do know that because we didn't leave our home every morning, so I asked, sometimes we saw his vehicle wasn't there, so I think I asked him where he did go. He said he went to the college,
So not the church, but the college.
to the library.
And you've been in the Daybell residence, correct?
Right.
And you talked about there are stairs in that residence?
There is to that
Judge,
addition.
Judge, I'm going to object. Mischaracterization.
Overruled.
So at least all of the residence is not one story. Is that fair?
Right.
And you were asked about Chad sharing with you his plans for the future. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And his plans for the future, as far as what he told you, were what again?
that he was going to Hawaii, but they did talk about marriage, but they didn't know when or where.
So the plans included going to Hawaii,
Mhm.
correct?
Right,
And the plans also included marrying Lori Vallow.
right.
When Chad first mentioned Lori's daughter, again, he referred to her as dead.
Judge, I'm going to object. There's not only is it leading,
Overruled.
He did. As I was asking her about her husband, and he mentioned that she just had a daughter that had passed.
So from that conversation, Chad knew or believed one of Lori's children was dead.
Yeah.
Are you aware that Lori's children were found on Chad Daybell's property?
Judge,
Yes.
objection.
Grounds.
It's now I'll withdraw, Judge, at this point. That's fine.
Are you aware Lori's children's remains were found on Chad Daybell's property?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
All right, that will conclude the testimony then of this witness. Does the state have any intention of a recall of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Will the defense intend to recall her or have her brought in your case in chief, Mr. Pryor?
No, Judge, I don't think so.
Okay, then you are released from any subpoena. Court appreciates your testimony and appearing for trial. You may go ahead and step down. Thank you.